After all these years, Peter, you still can't say my surname right. Louis. That's it. Almost there, almost there. No brown nosing here. It was great to have a load of tech talking about the importance of people, but now we're going to have people talking about the importance of dealing with people direct. Roy from Hurry just said something that will make accountants back curl, was the biggest asset hospitality businesses have is people. They're not on the balance sheet, they're only as a cost on the P&L, but I think COVID has proved that people are the biggest asset that hospitality businesses have. You can have a beautiful building, but if you don't have people to run it, it just doesn't work. And I think the industry has unfortunately found out the hard way that for too many years we haven't been investing in people and supporting them. One of the big parts of that is creating a culture that people love to be in. And we've got a great esteemed panel who will talk more about that and how they've done it from different parts of the country, different styles of hotels. So can I welcome Michael, Andrew and Judy up to stage, who will talk about this a lot more. Coming from different directions.
Should you sit in the middle?
Oh, okay.
Rows between two.
Okay.
The rows.
Yeah.
So just quickly, I don't know if you guys just want to introduce yourselves and your organisations.
Sure. My name's Andrew Henning. I'm the General Manager at Grosvenor House Suites, which is based here in London on Park Lane.
Cool.
I'm Judy Blakeburn. I'm the brand director of two hotels, Watergate Bay on the north coast of Cornwall, and another place, the lake, on the shores of Ullswater.
Good afternoon all. General Manager of the Barmer Lawn Hotel from the little place called Brockenhurst in Southampton, New Forest.
Cool. So as you see, a real wide variety of people. So just to kick off, what do you think the biggest changes in what you have needed to do since COVID in terms of the company culture to ensure longevity of the workforce?
Happy to start with that. So our property was closed all the way through the pandemic up until July last year, and I joined shortly before that. It was a case of bringing back the team, reopening like everybody went through. All of the team, the majority of the team had been kept on throughout, which was obviously a fantastic base. Some people had moved on in between. But I think, and having obviously worked in, I worked in other London properties previously, I think coming back after COVID, and I think we still see it today, some of the team have definitely changed, and I think people expect more flexibility. I think some people, everybody had a different experience. For some it was fairly straightforward and they were employed all the way through and they were busy, and then for others at the other end of the scale, maybe they lost loved ones or they lost their jobs, and so I think we were very conscious of that people were on a different journey coming back. And I think some people need more hand-holding. I think some people aren't quite as resilient. I think for me it's trying to recognize how were people affected, where are people on that journey, and what do they need today.
Yep. Judy, obviously a different location and...
Yes, but I'd echo everything just said. I think before COVID we'd have told you all that we had a great culture, people culture, employer culture. It was a great place to work. People wanted to come to us. And then, of course, COVID happened and we closed. And then once we reopened, it wasn't that it was chaotic, but it was. We saw an exodus of staff for all the reasons that you've listed. And we started seeing a very different type of person coming into the organisation, working alongside people who'd been with us for a very long time, so senior managers. It's a really interesting dynamic between a younger, less committed, perhaps not even considering a profession within hospitality, group of people who we needed joining a team who were working desperately hard and didn't quite understand. And that meant that we really needed to rethink, reassess who we were and what our culture was like for all our teams. But one of the things that happened during COVID was we had the opportunity as a senior team to consider ourselves as a business. And one of the big questions we asked ourselves was around sustainability. And we made the decision during that time to take the step and go towards becoming B Corp accredited. And through that process, we started thinking about our people in a different way. And having got through the very difficult time, we're now able to start thinking really seriously about what it means to develop a new people culture for our businesses.
Cool. Michael?
Coming out in a cold sweat thinking about 2.5, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I think for us, we're a family-owned business, so Chris and Alison Wilson own the Barmer Lawn, and they've owned it for 25 years last month. I've been there 7.5 years. And I think coming through COVID and then coming out the other side of COVID, I think there was so much more reliance on people that have been around the block, maybe, that have had sort of senior leadership and management experiences, had sort of dealt with adversity in business, sort of chaos management, change management. And there was a huge reliance on those individuals. They'd probably seen the yesteryear of hospitality, understanding, long hours, et cetera, But I think where we were and where I've been is I've been very fortunate to sort of invest in the hotel's culture from 7 years ago. So we were tried and tested for change management. We'd taken over the business. It was only turning over 2 million. And, going into the recession, it was touching 4.5 already. So, over the sort of 3, 4, 5 years, we put people very much at the beginning and, bolted in rather than bolted on, or built in rather than bolted on, into the project, into the task, into the dream, into the vision, into the mission. They were absolutely front and centre of our business plan. And but interestingly, coming out of COVID, nobody in any of the senior team in their library of books had a book called COVID. You couldn't go there and have a look and go, that's the one. We'll have a read from that. But again, they'd seen recessions, they'd seen challenges in businesses, dips in trade, and they were sort of a resilient bunch that could, be innovative, pick themselves up, create, own. And when we all had that wobble, I absolutely put my hand up. The first 6 weeks coming out of COVID, it was absolutely unrecognisable as a trading landscape. The people I'd worked with, what we'd all built up and stood, and delivered and committed to long term. And I think it was the realisation and the embodiment of those cultural anchors in your business and remembering what you stood for, remembering why you do a certain thing. And I think there was a coping strategy for probably a year or so where we made as good as we could from the situation. But I think it was very, very quickly my responsibility and the team's senior team leaders and managers' responsibility to kind of get us back to our path, commit, get back on and stick, the things that we've always done really well, bringing on the grassroots and, working with smaller hotels or collaboratively, looking at how you can, change and evolve and cope and survive. So, and I think in terms of the sort of new fresh blood coming in, we did a careers fair for the New Forest, and at the entry level, sort of 16 to 19-year-olds, we'd seen people that had never had an interview before. They did their GCSEs, they didn't do it. They were already just, and it was really quite a shock. These people just weren't prepared for the world of work. 4 or 5 days a week for them was too much. So, we've sort of worked with relationships with education bodies locally to try and get them some life preparation, tailor-make them for the local workplace. So bolting in sort of units about the New Forest and about what it is to work and all these things into a qualification. So it's been absolutely fascinating to watch the change in the last sort of 24 months.
Yeah. And in terms of, and you've all three touched upon it, obviously the new workforce coming in, as someone who's just about squeaks in as a millennial, I remember being at one of these conferences 15 years ago saying, how difficult it was to manage millennials. I don't think we're that bad. But obviously there's a lot of talk about the difficulty of Gen Z and them coming into the hospitality workplace. Have you found it, when you're interviewing people, that they're more interested in culture? And is that culture different to what it was pre-COVID? And have you had to sort of go, right, okay, well, we need to make a fundamental change to attract younger people to work for us?
I could go with that. Yes, I think that's absolutely true, and I'm seeing it more and more with the conversations I have with the teams. I'm spending more time on the floor talking to people to really understand how the younger members of our team think about us, who we need to be for them, and watching them engage with conversations around B Corp, around the sustainability, around the projects that we're talking to them about and seeing how they feel about. That's fascinating, watching people go from quite disinterested in who we might be to fully committed to being with us. So I think a younger generation particularly are very interested in that part of who we are. We've also, through the process, thinking about more engagement with the team through well-being programs. We've acknowledged we're spending much more time talking to people about their mental health. We're engaged with the Burnt Chef project. And of course, if we want people to consider hospitality as a lifelong profession, then training is fundamental. And actually starting to think about training through a slightly different lens. Yes, we all need our skills training, but what else should we be delivering in that space, and how do we engage to make that a valuable part of their career progression?
Yeah, and just on the end of that, not just craft skills, but we've just started complementary English classes for our team, and there's been amazing take-up. And even some of our agency housekeeping team have asked to be part of it, and we're involving them too. And we were finding just that more and more people coming in with less and less English skills, which our guests were beginning to notice. So training definitely, and I think still creating an environment that people want to be in, somewhere that's positive and optimistic and engaging, and where they see they have a future, and if they want to grow and they want a career, then they can have that. So I think also with younger people coming in, so we used a student over the summer, for example, to get us started on our green journey. So we're heading towards Green Key accreditation next year. And again, that was another little sort of sub-team that came together quite quickly, and quite a lot of the team are very passionate about. But again, for me, it's about creating an environment that people want to be in, that they're happy in, and an environment in which they feel they can contribute and be involved in, and they can flourish.
Yeah.
I think it's just echoing exactly what you both said. I think I did something similar earlier in the year, and I sort of did a questionnaire with my team. One of them came back with, to the question, why do you like to work at the Balmoral Hotel? And the answer was, it's like hospitality within hospitality. And I said, I'm going to use that again today, because for your response, so off the cuff, to talk about the way you've been treated, the way you've been invested, and she's a waitress, has been with us full-time for 3 years. It's sort of, that's the feedback that you need to hear. Obviously, if you're getting it wrong, likewise, you need to find that out. But I think that's a key thing in terms of retention. Recruitment is a sort of interview, might be trial shifts nowadays, however you do it. But actually, if they're coming on board and they're seeing a stressed team or an overworked, exhausted, exploited team or product or service, that's not going to keep people.
And I think something we discussed when we had a Zoom call, seems like a million years ago, but it's almost like we're having to, as leaders, treat staff like customers as well. And so when you're in the interview stage or even at the advertising stage for that role, it's advertising more than just the function of the job, training, well-being, and so forth. obviously, regions and London, have you, obviously, London probably impacted more severely by the B word, but we can't get away from that fact. Have you found that the type of person coming for the roles in London and maybe even in the regions is more British, or are you getting more Europeans who are shifting careers, or what have you guys seen?
Still not a huge number of British people coming in. I think a different sort of candidate from different parts of the world, different parts of Europe. But still not a huge number. It's always a joy when you get somebody who's from this country coming to join the team. The diversity is great, of course, but still not a huge number of British people.
And have you guys in the region seen a difference?
For us, we have almost predominantly British workforce now. That's a huge change since the two words. And I think that's a problem for us, and I think that we need the diversity back within our teams. We struggle with recruiting or bringing people into county because during the whole staycation boom, our closest town where people used to live, Newquay, most of that rental accommodation was turned over to Airbnb. So we've had to invest in properties ourselves, so catching up and then being able to recruit into the county. Two other strategies we have at the moment is we're a visa sponsor, and we're sponsoring chefs actually from India at the moment to support us, and we're working closely with both our county council and more widely to give jobs to Ukrainians who are either here or we've just recently sponsored some who arrived today.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, we're a host family as well.
Oh,
we have a couple who've been with us about 3 months and working in the team, and we'll help them on their way.
And I think one of the things I think hospitality has shown throughout the C word and the B word, and we won't talk about Liz Truss because there's lots of different words, but in reality, is that despite all the pain we've been through, two people, we have been probably one of the industries that's given the most back. And I think everyone in the room, but particularly the three of you, really should be proud of it, because long term I believe in karma, and I think it will come back in positive ways. But the fact that we've been able to offer roles to people from all over the world, but particularly those from Ukraine who really need it, has been wonderful. Obviously, you all got different ownership, family business, similar to where I work. Do you think there's hard and fast rules that no matter what size business either you're owned by or run, that ensure a really positive culture, something that either doesn't cost a lot or something that you've learned not just through the C and B word, but actually longer, that ensures a long-term positive culture? So
I think I'll start. We focus very much on the whole employee journey, and I think we had that stark realization that in terms of accountability in jobs, who had the job of actually really looking at that entire process from start to finish. And when I mean finish, I mean my accounts lady celebrating 42 years and someone coming for their first shift. And I think everyone can do something. Yeah, there's literally no reason why nobody should be doing nothing. It's very multi-layered. We throw 100 things in and maybe 7 or 8, maybe 20, 30 things stick with an employee. Something you do for one doesn't suit another, and that's okay. That's absolutely okay. We sort of look at ourselves, look at the pitfalls of the industry, and we look at what we can do individually. We must do that collaboratively as a group. Very, very lucky down the New Forest, got a really open-minded bunch of hoteliers, and we've collaborated on careers days to initiatives of you see all these things like Perk Box, but actually we've got a Go New Forest card which lets them live in the area of Hampshire and New Forest and have sort of 250 discounts to local services. Some use it, some don't. We've got initiatives that you can have a staff recognition scheme on the tent card. We're piloting a new scheme where every member of staff has got a kind of a little portfolio online, and they can go, and it's only positive comments, so it is moderated and fed back, but that employee gets that. We have an employee-run recognition scheme. So, I mean, there's no reason why we can't do anything. I mean, last year, for example, I sort of got my nose in the trough and did recruit a friend thing. You know, I didn't do it this year, I didn't need to. I realised that actually the delivery of the value and the delivery of the expectation and allowing people to come in and see senior leaders and managers that were classy, that were doing a good job, that weren't stressed. We weren't exhausting our assets, our most precious assets. And in turn, the customer's getting a better service and paying the right price for it. And that's a theme that we're sort of seeing running into this year. And we've come out of COVID and we've had the same pinch that everyone else has had, but I'm very proud to say when the chips were down, people stuck at it. They connected with that vision, that purpose long term, and that we fought really hard to continue that and embody it. But it's different, you know. For everyone else, it's very, very different. You know, if I could get ponies to deliver food to tables, I'd be laughing. But it's, you know, because I live in the New Forest. Yeah, just want to clear that up. You know, getting staff in is really tough. You know, my goodness me, you've got to work tooth and nail. You know, we've got Department of Work and Pensions putting on things that events for the Ukrainians. We've got to get involved. We've got to get involved. We've got, you know, smaller businesses that don't do a university placement. We've got them leaving our hotels and going into their business for 3 months because it would really help them and they'd get that front-end experience, you know. So we can all work collaboratively to do something, wherever you are.
I think you have to have the support from above. We have great owners. We're very fortunate. We have a great management company, and it makes a massive difference. So we can get a lot done. They'll support with the training. They've supported with salary increases through the year. We introduced service charge this year. Everybody was supportive with that. So it makes a massive difference if the people above you are supportive in that way.
And Judy?
It's the same for us. It comes from absolutely the top. You talked about positivity, that positive culture. It has to come. It has to trickle down from the top, and I think that's what we've achieved despite everything that's happened to us. On Monday night, I was at a quiz night for about 100 of our team. Wow. You know, we got 280 staff in Cornwall. And for that number to come along, you have to do something different for everyone, of course, but it was really interesting to see that. And then making sure our teams can actually enjoy our hospitality out of season, come and experience what it is our guests experience, get out on the water, both in Cornwall and in the Lake District. So lots of opportunity for them to enjoy and feel what it is we do for themselves.
Trying to keep the finance teams excited in the room. We talked a little bit on our call about ROI of all of this. And one of the things I talked about was when I was running hotels, we never used a recruitment agent. And actually, on reflection, probably saved quite a lot of money. Is that something that you've found that you've had to bring more stuff in-house and seen the benefit from it? Because I guess sometimes through agencies, it's harder to show off your culture because obviously there's a middle person in between.
I was just in conversation today with one of my team about whether we should pay a bit extra to get who we think is the right person rather than have to go to an agent and pay a big fee for it and so on. So we try not to. We have to at times. Yep. But clearly, financially, it makes sense to be able to do it ourselves.
Yeah, I don't know.
Absolutely the same. We try to run all our recruitment for ourselves. We think we understand our brand the best. And yes, but we have to from time to time, of course.
Yeah. I suppose it's a bit like from the hoteliers and the accountant's perspective, is book direct. Was obviously a big thing and still is, and I guess that's the case with staffing now, which is important. In terms of takeaways for people inspired by lots of things today, what do you think if people are sat there going, I can't retain staff, I'm offering them more money and people aren't staying, what do you think you would say to someone in that position in terms of giving them a tip to either create the culture or to create a matching environment to entice people and ultimately to keep them, because that's the other challenge people have?
I think just take a long, hard look at your business model, speak to your staff. You know, I'd seen staff, you know, that were sort of at wit's end because I couldn't get more staff. And I was like, well, let's look at what we can do to get you in a position where you're in control. And I think we coined it earlier with Harry that, you know, I'd rather, if they're going to do a 12-hour shift, let's give them a 12-hour shift where they're in control rather than out of control, where they feel like they've achieved something, where they feel like it's not overwhelmed them. So that might be resources, it might be material goods, it might be another dishwasher, it might be, you know, I mean, we've absolutely turned over every stone. We've gone through our business, we've cut out costs, we're trying to look at, you know, sales, but actually, what's making that day at work unbearable? Why are you looking to leave? And you'll find that there is stuff that you can do, you know, to straighten the line between effort and result, or, you know, product and consumer. You know, those marginal gains in any business can be radical to employees.
I think that I absolutely echo all of that. There's so many things that you have to consider to make success in these terms. But that whole people being under pressure, one of the things we spoke about on Zoom is actually the accidental manager.
Yes.
And I think for us, acknowledging that we've that we've done that a number of times now. And we've looked at that, and we're investing in training for our middle managers. We've just worked with Truro, well, our executive head chef has just worked with Truro and Penwith College to create a course called the Chef Manager. So to deliver those skills back to people who are already in these positions, so particularly for retention of our middle management teams.
Yep.
Absolutely have to invest in your team. And I think even when it's you know, recessionary times on the horizon, you can't stop. Whether it's training, development, we're doing similar things in terms of our management training. We started with our leadership training because it just affects the entire organization, whether it's benefits, social, have to keep investing in the team.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much all for your insight. I'm sure people will be around for more. As a summary, size does not matter when it comes to having a company culture. One of yours, Peter. But invest in your people. They are your number one asset. And despite a recession on the horizon, don't give up on your people, because when things come good, it may be tough, as we have found, to re-employ. So really look after people, train them, make sure they're not accidental managers, and make them feel part of something that's more than just the four walls of a hotel. Thank you to the panel, and thank you for listening.
A brilliant panel led by the brilliant Steve Lowy. I'll never get it wrong again. Thank you very much.